decadent and creamy. That delicious cheese that's not sharp and aged like cheddar, but isn't like lovely and bland like mozzarella. Today we're talking about cream cheese. The big question is, does it actually take a couple days to make the best cream cheese? So we normally, if you watched our previous video on the mozzarella challenge, and if you haven't, then watch it somewhere up there. But today we're making cream cheese, and we're going to do two different fashions. Now, normally we're making them both at the same time, but one takes a couple days to make, and one takes a couple hours. So we're going to start this one today, since it takes so long, and the other one we'll make at the very end. We'll compare them to see which one's better. So for cream cheese, the long method, we're going to need a gallon of milk. Now we're using raw milk, and if you can notice, it actually has the fat still set on the top. This time I am going to shake it. We're going to need a culture. We'll put the link in the doobly-doo at the bottom. This is mesophilic. The difference between mesophilic and thermophilic is one, thermophilic takes heat to actually get it to go. So we're going to splatter this milk all over the stove. I'm sure my wife is going to be very happy about that. And we're going to get this heated up. We want it to get to a temperature of 86. And what's so magical about 86? Really, absolutely nothing. It's just a good temperature for the culture to start breathing. So let's get this on. Guess it'd help if I turned on the right one. There we go. Now we're wanting to get this to an internal temperature, I guess not internal, but a temperature of 86 degrees. We also have Rennet. Again, we'll have a link to that. You can get all this stuff off of Amazon. Now you won't need it right now, but you are going to need some cheesecloth, and actually probably a butter muslin, I think is what it's called, is probably better. Cheesecloth typically has a really wide weave, and this is going to be very loose. So you want something that's going to have a much tighter weave for it. So what is it that makes cream cheese anyway? As this is coming up to temperature, I mean, I could probably go through the whole history and some of the ironic parts of it, because we in America know it as cream cheese, and probably the most popular brand is Philly cream cheese, which was never in Philly. But apparently back when they came across Philly cream cheese, they actually, Philadelphia was the hub of good cheese. This is way before my time, but it started out, and I'm going to probably butcher this name, but it started out from Neufchâtel, which is actually a French cheese, probably one of the oldest French cheeses out there. And the only difference between that and cream cheese is they add more cream. Go figure. Leave it to America to add more fat to make something even better. So we're going to let this come up to temperature. I'm going to continue to stir it every once in a while just so that it heats up evenly, and then we'll get right back to you. All right, so we are back. It is at 86. I'm going to turn off the heat. And you want to make for sure that it doesn't go too terribly far over. Now, I can tell you that it gets to 86 actually pretty fast. And you want to make for sure that you don't go too far over, because it could damage the culture. And the reason why you want to stir it as much as you do is because you want it to not be 86 just at one spot. So I'm measuring that as at 87. So we're going to continue to stir that just a little bit and actually cool that off. And we're going to get that ready. And we're going to be adding our cheese starter. Now this one actually says it is for cream cheese. So we're going to try it out. We've never actually tried it before. But pretty much any of them, any of the mesophilics will actually work. You ever wonder why they make these things so difficult to open? There we go. Nothing a knife can't handle, right? And we're just going to sprinkle this on. We're going to distribute it across the top. Now, I have no idea why it says this, but the directions say stir for 15 seconds and no more. So we're going to go 16 seconds. 1, 2. Seriously, you just want to, you kind of, well, it really does say 15 seconds and no more. I don't know. I honestly don't understand that, but whatever. I'm just going to go up and down. And all you're trying to do is you're trying to get that stirred in, not just on the surface, but you want it to go all the way to the bottom. It's a very unnatural way of stirring. I've done figure eights before, kind of an up and down, and that actually works. And then we're going to add the rennet. And I've seen this a few different ways. I've seen people add it to water and then take like teaspoons out of the water, and that seems to work. It doesn't make any sense to me. You can't really go with too much rennet, but we're going to go with 5 drops. So 1, 2, 3, 5. Sorry, I wasn't trying to turn into the count there. I'm sure you guys can count. And we're just going to stir that as well. Just make sure that it is good and stirred in. Again, going with the up and down. Just trying to get that liquid to kind of mix in all the way throughout it. And that is pretty much it. You're going to want to set this aside, and you're going to let this set between 12 and 18 hours. And we will be back at that point. Sadly, not even close to being done at that point, because even after it sets and we have to drain it. But we'll get back after this sets into a curd, and I'll show you what it looks like at that point. Well, we are back for the next phase. It's late in the evening, early in the morning, whichever. Anyway, it's still dark out, but our cheese is definitely set up. If you look at that, you see that there's a good curd. There's a lot of whey actually sitting on top. But you're just going to want to dip this off. I actually want to show you what I've got here. Essentially, you notice that this is something that's a lot thicker than cheesecloth. And then I have a colander underneath it, just basically to hold this weight while I'm dipping it out. And then a bowl underneath to catch the whey. So you just want to start pulling this out. And we're going to go into the next phase, which is basically hanging this stuff. It actually has kind of a pleasant smell, and you can see it's pretty set up. Okay, so we've got all of our curds in to the bag. Like I said, you can let it sit here or sit over a sink or whatever for about 10 minutes or so, because it's going to drain a lot of weight then. And essentially all you're wanting to do is you're wanting to tie up these ends. Doesn't have to be any fancy knots, because trust me, you're going to have to untie them, but you want to tie up from corner to corner. And then what we do is we hang it over the knob on our cabinet with a bowl underneath it to catch the runoff. You want to do this for anywhere from 3 hours, I've heard as short as, to 12 hours. 12 hours to me seems a little excessive and gets a little drier than what we prefer, but you just have to keep on testing it. And essentially all you're doing is you're setting and letting it drip like this. Again, let it sit for about 3 to 12 hours. So we'll be back in a little bit after I get some more sleep. All right, so we are ready to go on to cream cheese number 2. Finally, the cream cheese has been setting, drying, if you will, or draining, however you want to put that, for anyway, about 8-9 hours. They say you can go up to about 12 hours. But this one we're going to see if we can actually just make this cream cheese pretty much faster than that even takes to dry. So here again, we're going to go with a gallon of milk. And the beautiful part about this one is it has very few steps. For a gallon of milk, I've already shaken this. So for a gallon of milk, we are going to add 3/4 of a cup of an acid. In this case, we're going to go with lemon juice. Some vinegars are going to leave you with an aftertaste. So in this case, we actually want to bring this milk up to a boil and then start adding the lemon juice. So just about the time it starts to simmer, you're starting to see bubbles kind of come up, then it should be good. So this is going to take a few minutes to come up to speed, and then we will get this process going. All right, so we are actually close to temperature. You don't actually need the milk to come to a full, like, rolling boil. When you start to see it foam up, almost like a nice latte or whatever, what I like to do is I'm going to turn the temperature down to a low, and I'm going to start pouring in the lemon juice. You don't want to just dump this all in at once. You just pour it in, you kind of stir it. You kind of want to get it mixed throughout, and you'll actually see this as it blends in. You will see the curds actually start to form. I guess if I get the lemon juice out of the way. We'll stop there for a little bit. I'm going to turn our temperature all the way down. And you can actually see them kind of hanging on the spoon right there. As this starts to settle, you'll see it quite a bit. I'm going to go ahead and turn that temperature off just so that we don't go kind of crazy here. There we go. See how that is exactly what we're looking for. And you're just going to keep on stirring this. Go ahead and add the rest of it. We'll consider that done. And your water, as it continues to, your milk continues to curdle, that is, the curds are going to set to the bottom, and you want your milk to basically be like a yellowish or brackish water. Oddly enough, the white in milk is predominantly fat. And so what we're doing is we're actually pulling the lactose, I think it is, and the fat out. And all that's left is the whey and water, but milk is predominantly water. So we're going to let that set for just a minute, and then we're going to actually take that off and go ahead and we're going to get another cheesecloth and a strainer, and we're going to start straining this. And I'll be right back. All right, so now we're just going to strain this off. I've got my muslin with or my cheesecloth, I guess, butter muslin, I think is actually what this one is. I got a bowl underneath it, and then I got a sieve underneath that. So we're just going to start pouring this in, scooping out as much as we can. It probably will come to a point where I'm just going to pour it in. Now, the higher the fat content of the milk, and I believe I said this earlier, but if I didn't, we're actually using raw milk that still has the cream in it. So our fat is full fat milk. But the higher the fat content, then the more cheese you're going to be able to render out of it. So just understand, if you're You can't really do this with cream cheese, or can't do this with skim milk. So you're going to need a whole milk in order to do it. And remember that cream cheese, the legal definition, pretty sure the law is not going to step in, but we're not selling this on the open market, but the legal definition is that it has a higher fat content of 33%, according to US standards of cheese, of cream cheese in particular. So I'm going to continue to render this off, or get the cheese out, and it's going a whole lot slower than I was thinking. So we're going to pause that, and I am going to just dump it in there. All right, so we are coming to the moment when we're all excited for it, because we're wanting to try the taste test. Now, I just poured all of this in here. I drained off the whey. You've probably heard this a bunch of times. Don't throw away the whey. It can be fed to animals. You can put it in plants, but I'd be really careful about that, because if you add too much, then you can create other problems. It can actually be used as a marinade, especially this one. This is the one that we just pulled off the stove. The lemon juice, the acid, regardless of whether it's lemon juice or vinegar, will actually act as a tenderizer for your meat. So you can go ahead and use that as a marinade. But anyway, there's a bunch of different things that you can use the whey for. I'm not going to go into it today. But we're going to let this set for an additional like 10, 15 minutes. It's already been sitting there for 5 minutes while I got this set up. But while we're waiting, here is the cream cheese that we started. Is that like last year or something? Seriously, what are we into this? Like 30 hours, I think. And we're going to go ahead. All that's left for this one is, all we have to do is salt it. You want about 2 teaspoons of salt. I would add a teaspoon, mix it in, and then add another teaspoon after you taste it. See that, because you can always add more salt, but you can't take it away. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't stick this in this bowl without making too much of a mess. My problem is that I always seem to get the smallest bowl for this, and seeing as how we're mixing it, I kind of need some space. Maybe I got lucky. And that bowl is probably too small. I could always put it back in here and then scoop it back in there. That might be what I end up doing. Yeah, that's what I'm end up doing. Okay. We're going to add some salt. And like I said, we're going to start with just one. We'll come back for another one here, but we're just going to mix that in. I think I'm only going to go with another half. You probably wonder why I'm doing this with my hand, where I have a hand mixer right there. I'm kind of wondering that myself right now. But this is almost done anyway. And where that one's really going to come into play is with our second cheese. Okay, we'll dump that back into the bowl. Now, if you were making like a cream cheese or a New York style cheesecake or something like that, you might want to go with a little bit less. If you wanted to add, say, flavorings, I mean, my goodness, you can get just about any kind of cream cheese now. Garlic and herb. You can get honey. You can get pineapple and honey, I think. It's kind of weird. Anyway. First one is done. We're going to go ahead and move on to the second one. This has been sitting here for about 15 minutes. It's had an opportunity to drain. And this one we're going to have to actually blend. I think that this is the correct size bowl for this one, again, chances are good I'm wrong though. We're just going to dump this out. You'll notice that the texture on this one is a little bit different. So this has a crumbly texture, you'll notice, and this is actually where we want it. Almost looks like a cottage cheese without the cream, right? And again, this is a gallon of milk, so we're gonna start with a teaspoon of salt, and we are going to blend this. If you had like a food processor, you can use a blender. Personally, I don't like to use it just because it's way too difficult, in my opinion, to kind of clean around the blades or whatever. So a little hand mixer is perfect, in my opinion. You're gonna wanna blend it or mix it or whatever you wanna call it for about a minute or so, but use your eye. So let's go ahead and blend this. I might actually add a little, actually, I don't know if I'm going to. I'm just going to blend this a little bit longer. Have patience with me and we'll get to the taste test. Go ahead and I got you a spoon for each one.
All right.
And let me know first off what you think of the texture, and then we'll decide which one we like best.
It's a little gritty. It's got a little tang to it. But
cream cheese does actually have a tang.
Yeah, I don't dislike that. It's definitely creamier.
So the question is, which one do you like better?
Texture, so creaminess and flavor, this one. This one's very mellow, but this has an interesting kind of bite to it.
Okay.
But the texture I'm not so excited about, but I would love it mixed with some herbs.
So, and I would agree that that one does have like a gritty texture to it. It's almost like there's sand. You said that that one would be good mixed in something, but I think we both agreed that that one was gritty. This one is creamier. I personally like the flavor of this one.
Yeah.
Like I would love this on a bagel or cream cheese.
Do tell though, now I'm dying to know. Which one
That's
is that?
the hour.
Oh.
This one was the hour long. That took 2 days to make. And quite
it
frankly,
explains the flavor, but I like that one better.
I think I personally. So again, if you like a little funk in your cheese, which quite frankly, some cheeses are good funky. That does have a much more pungent flavor to it.
Yeah, that's just very mellow.
Yeah, very mellow, very good.
But you can add anything into that too.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Yay.
So let me know if you've tried these two recipes. Put a comment below. I would love to know what your thoughts are. I know some people swear by this. I've seen a few different people. I think Gavin Weber is probably the most famous on YouTube that's actually done this, but I've seen other people do it.
The Australian guy?
The Australian guy.
On YouTube, yeah.
If you've tried that, this is a super quick recipe, and quite frankly, I'd rather have that.
Yeah.
So
let's get some crackers.
Okay, let's get some crackers. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, thanks for stopping by.